Welcome, everyone. My name's Eddie Rich. I'm the CEO of the International Hydropower Association. Thank you for joining us today, which is the Global Hydropower Day, the inaugural first one that we have ever hosted and convened, and with inputs from all around the world. I'm honoured to be joined for this webcast by Keisuke Sadamori, who is the Director for Energy Markets and Security in the International Energy Agency, and has been there for 10 years. And before that, Keisuke, I understand you served in the cabinet of the Prime Minister of Japan, where you worked on a number of important energy projects, including the follow-up to the Fukushima accident in 2011. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me kick things off. Keisuke, IEA has been producing these very important big picture documents explaining about the pathway to net zero in 2050. And of course, the big story there is we're going to need a massive upscaling of renewable energy. We're going to need a huge amount more wind. We're going to need a huge amount more solar. You also say in the pathway that we have to double hydropower capacity in the next 30 years. We've got to build the same amount in the next 30 years as we have done in the last 130 years. That's about 1,200 to 1,300 gigawatts of hydropower. So why is hydropower, in your opinion, such a vital part of the solution for keeping global temperature rises under control?
First of all, thank you very much for including the IEA in this important event. And as you say, last year, the IEA released the world's first hydropower special market report in June. The aim of this report is to raise the awareness of the multiple important roles that the hydropower plays in the global energy transitions. Among other functions, hydropower plays two important main roles. First, it is a source of low-carbon electricity. Currently, it is the world's largest source, providing almost 1/3 of low-carbon electricity. And that's 60% higher than the nuclear and 80% higher than solar PV and the wind combined. Second, it is one of the largest source of system flexibility, providing 30% of system flexibility needs. As it is dispatchable, it can ramp up and down quickly and provide storage across the multiple timelines. These two roles will continue to be critical to achieve the global net zero emissions by 2050. Because as variable renewables increase by a factor of 20, reaching almost 50,000 terawatt hours, or almost 70% of the total electricity generation by 2050. So the need for all forms of power system flexibility increases significantly, and that includes the dispatchable clean electricity. As highlighted in our net zero emission roadmap, the hydropower capacity and generation will need to double, as you point out, becoming the third largest source of electricity generation by 2050. That's 12% of the total generation. And in order to integrate the PV and wind, hydropower becomes the largest source of dispatchable power, providing flexibility in our net zero emission scenario by 2050.
Yeah, so you paint a very clear picture. We're going to have wind and solar, these variable resources, and we need to back it up somehow. It needs to have more flexibility in the system. We need to have more storage in the system. This can come in a low carbon way from hydropower. Do you want to say, are there any other human benefits from hydropower? What can tomorrow's generations can they benefit at all by these large infrastructure, not always large and small, but what are those real measurable ways that hydropower might be able to improve people's lives if done properly?
First, the hydropower contributes to electricity security. And this is crucially important in the energy transition, as wind and solar bring new integration challenges due to their variability. For example, during the COVID-19 lockdowns, the hydropower provided much needed flexible electricity supply to keep the lights on or the work from home by responding quickly to adjust to lower demand and the higher solar and wind share. Second, the hydropower is a cost-effective way to increase the electricity access in emerging economies, particularly in Southeast Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa, where the potential of hydro is still huge and access to electricity is lacking or insufficient. The new hydropower plants can provide affordable electricity services at a range of sizes. So micro hydropower have been used in mini grids to provide electricity to rural communities not connected to the main network, providing basic electricity services such as lighting, refrigeration for households, schools, and hospitals. Larger utility-scale hydropower can provide the uninterrupted low-cost power to electricity-intensive industries, which helps drive the economic growth. Third, the investment in reservoir hydropower can provide many non-energy water benefits to society, such as the agriculture, irrigation, drinking water supply, transport and navigation, flood control, and recreation and tourism. Globally, 40% of today's hydropower dams also provide multiple non-energy services. Our forecast sees multi-purpose water use being an important driver for growth in Sub-Saharan Africa, ASEAN, and Latin America. And finally, development of hydropower infrastructure can also help increase the economic development and by providing new job opportunities.
So jobs, drought and flood control, irrigation, water supply, ecotourism, lots of other opportunities, multi-purpose, as you say, non-energy potential benefits of big and small hydropower. It just doesn't really matter whether it's big or small. What really matters is whether it's done in a sustainable way. Now, we talked about that doubling required. Are we on track? And if not, because I think we know the answer to that, what are those main barriers? What are the financial, economic barriers, the social, environmental barriers? What can we do?
Despite the ample potential, net capacity additions over the 2021 to 2030 period are forecast to slow down by almost one quarter compared with the previous decade. And that's mainly due to China. We see around 230 gigawatt of new additions led by China, accounting for 40% of the entire growth. However, there are regions where the development is growing, such as the Asia Pacific and Sub-Saharan Africa, due to untapped potential, increasing power demand and electricity access, and the multi-purpose use of dams. In fact, the emerging economies and developing countries account for almost 90% of all hydro expansion in the next decade. Despite the attractiveness of the hydropower investments in developing countries, developers face economic risks, policy uncertainties, long permitting, and construction times. Should governments be able to address these challenges, we could see that the 40% more growth with access to affordable financing, streamlined permitting, and improved market designs. Yet even at this pace, we would still need faster growth to reach net zero by 2050. We would need almost 500 gigawatt added by 2030, and that's almost twice as much as our forecast. And this requires governments to do more than just policy and market improvements, but to increase their ambitions for future hydropower development.
This is worrying. I mean, what you're painting is a picture where it's going at about half the pace that it needs to. And there is one area, though, that I do see a lot of activity going on, and that is in pumped storage. Last month, there was the big opening of the Nont de Drance in Switzerland, and then big announcements in Queensland over the last week. Big work going on in parts of India. What do you see as the role of pumped storage in this clean energy transition?
The pumped storage is by far the largest and the most affordable form of electricity storage today. It accounts for over 90% of the global storage capacity, and it is currently cheaper than batteries. Our current hydropower 10-year forecast sees the next decade as a record-breaking decade for the pumped storage. We see about 65 gigawatts of PSH, pumped storage hydro, coming online between 2021 and 2030. And that's almost double the previous record between 1971 and the 1980 period. In fact, the 1/3 of all new hydropower capacity additions over the next decade are expected to be pumped storage hydro. And China is expected to account for over half of the PSH deployment, followed by Asia Pacific, Europe, North America, Eurasia, and there are even projects underway in the Middle East and North Africa. The main driver of this PSH expansion is the need to increase system flexibility, and there are two reasons. One, to integrate the increasing solar PV and wind generation targeted by governments. This is the main driver of PSH in China, United States, Europe, and Australia. The second is to accommodate changing demand profiles resulting from the electrification in regions like Southeast Asia, and supplement generation from less flexible assets, such as in India and Turkey. However, the policy and market challenges limit the potential of the higher PSH growth. In some markets, the economic attractiveness of arbitrage between the high and low demand is weakening, and the absence of the price signals for the flexibility makes the business case challenging. And also the permitting and licensing of new projects can be lengthy. So if the governments could address some of these challenges, then PSH growth could be 1/3 higher.
We'll come back to that, because those are really key. Those policy tweaks in many cases. They're not necessarily radical changes to the market that can be done that can really start building particularly pumped storage. And pumped storage has the added advantage that it can often be done off-river. And so many of the social and environmental challenges associated with on-river hydropower can be avoided. I hope we're going to see a lot more of the policy interventions that can incentivize pumped storage. The other big opportunity is making the most of existing infrastructure and modernization. Almost half the existing hydropower fleet globally is over 30 years old. How important is that going to be in the big picture?
Today's the hydropower fleet is not young, as you point out. Around 40% of the fleet is at least 40 years old. Most of the older plants are located in North America and Europe, and this fleet will continue to get older. Over the next 10 years, 20% of today's fleet, around 300 gigawatt, will reach 55 years old. At this age, the plant will need modernization to keep optimal performance in all water level conditions. And this is crucial for electricity security. Modernizing also provides an opportunities to increase flexibility by adjusting operating conditions to new water flow patterns and the market conditions that may have changed since the plant was started, and also to make the plant safer and to resolve the outstanding environmental issues such as the inadequate drought management and flood control. We forecast that the investment in modernizing the existing fleet by replacing and upgrading turbines will account for $120 billion of global hydropower investments over the next decade. However, that is not enough to keep the current fleet running at optimal performance. We would need more than double, $300 billion to modernize the plants that will age over the next decade. So that means that we have an investment gap. This is because developers face challenges, and those challenges are limited visibility over the long-term remuneration, changes in the regulatory environment since the plant was first built that increase the cost and also the time of permitting. The investment gap is also a kind of a missed opportunity to improve the plant's operating flexibility. Modernizing provides an opportunity to install the equipment and adjust operating conditions to new water flow patterns and market conditions that may have changed since the plant started. So modernization needs as much policy attention as the new builds, new power.
Yeah, that's very interesting and very important. We need to find the mechanisms to assess it. In terms of investment opportunities, I should say that IEA has done assessments of opportunities in Asia, Latin America, and is soon doing one. Releasing the information about Africa, and that's been done with the regional banks. Keisuke, if I may, just some final questions to wrap this all together. Here we have this, what Fatih Birol has called the forgotten giant of renewables, as you say, bigger than all the other renewables. And the benefits, poorly understood, often left out of the discussions about addressing climate change. What's your advice to hydropower stakeholders who are watching this, and particularly policymakers, about what can be done to accelerate its development and to play its full role in the climate transition?
So as you point out, the hydropower does and can continue to play a very valuable, important role in achieving net zero emissions. But the governments need to prioritize the policy and regulatory the changes to get there. To help do that, we have set out 7 priority areas for action to accelerate the hydropower deployment. And they are the first, the move hydropower up the energy and climate policy agenda. So make it more of a priority than it now. Second, they enforce the robust sustainability standards for all the hydropower development with streamlined rules and regulations. So this minimizes the kind of delays and allows for smoother permitting. Third, they recognize the critical role of hydropower for electricity security and reflect its value through the remuneration mechanisms. And this helps make the business case for new development. Fourth, maximize the flexibility capabilities of the existing hydropower plants through measures to incentivize their modernization. Current market conditions sometimes don't support investment needed by those existing plants. Fifth, support the expansion of pumped storage hydropower, the largest affordable source of electricity storage today. Six, mobilize the affordable financing for sustainable hydropower development in developing economies. And there's large untapped potential in many emerging markets, and risks need to be mitigated. And last but not least, to take steps to ensure that the value of the multiple public benefits provided by hydropower plants is priced in. So hydropower has more benefits than just energy. So if those are taken into account, it could make the difference in investment decisions.
Thank you so much. What you've done there is very neatly encapsulated in 7 points what needs to be done. Those are captured in the IEA's Hydropower Markets Report from 2021. I'm proud that IHA worked with you on that, but also we are now working on each one of those 7 points. Keisuke Sadamori, thank you so much. You've really enlightened the discussions. We need to wake up policymakers. IEA are really doing that in a spectacular way. We're proud to work with you. I encourage anybody watching to get involved in the debate. Hashtag Global Hydropower Day and hashtag with Hydropower. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. It was our pleasure.